Hello dear students, welcome to this class on the novel Shylock is My Name by Howard Jacobson. Shakespeare's influence on contemporary literature is undeniably prolific, and there are numerous adaptations, retellings and subversions of Shakespearean plays. For example, Desdemona by Toni Morrison, I, Iago by Nicole Galland, Fool by Christopher Moore, and so on. The Hogarth Press decided to commemorate the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death by asking a number of contemporary novelists to rewrite a play by Shakespeare. The first book of the series was Jeanette Winterson's cover version of The Winter's Tale by Shakespeare, titled The Gap of Time, published in 2015. It was followed by Margaret Atwood's Hag's Seed, Howard Jacobson's Shylock is My Name, Anne Taylor's Vinegar Girl, which retold The Tempest, The Merchant of Venice, and The Taming of the Shrew, respectively. Novels like New Boy, Dunbar are also adaptations of Shakespearean plays like Othello and King Lear. Howard Jacobson is a British Jewish writer who became popular when he received the Booker Prize for the work The Fingler Question in 2010. His 14th novel was a result of this commission by Hogarth Press. Rather than slavishly following Shakespeare's plot in Merchant of Venice, Jacobson playfully subverts it and makes necessary changes here and there. Jacobson chose to rewrite this play, The Merchant of Venice, as Shylock is My Name, in order to provide a sympathetic portrayal of Shylock in the context of a contemporary, predominantly British setting. Shylock is in fact present in the novel twice as the Shakespeare's character who is transposed to our time, as well as Simon Strulovich, his double, who is a philanthropist living in Cheshire, while all of the other Shakespearean characters of this play have been renamed and reimagined as representatives of early 21st century. As Shylock's memories mirror Simon's problems, the text not only illustrates the universal themes of Shakespeare's play, but also focuses on intolerance, revenge, and mercy in relation to anti-Semitism in early 21st century Britain. Before going to the novel, let's take a look at the characters and plot of the play Merchant of Venice. You might have studied this play Merchant of Venice, sometimes the abridged version of the play in your school days, or you might have read the play and you might be familiar with the story. But still, let's take a look at the characters. The main protagonist of Merchant of Venice is Portia, an heiress of Belmont, and her servant Nerissa, then a merchant of Venice, that is Antonio, Bassanio, a Venetian gentleman and a suitor to Portia, then Leonardo, who is a servant to Bassanio, then Shylock, a Jewish money lender in Venice, and Jessica, his daughter. Then we find another Jewish money lender, that is Tubal. Then Lancelot Gobbo, who is a servant to Shylock. Then Lancelot's father, a messenger. Then a few other companions of Antonio and Bassanio, including Gratiano and Lorenzo. So these are the main characters that we encounter in the play Merchant of Venice. Let's take a look at the story. Antonio, the merchant in the Merchant of Venice in the play, secures a loan from Shylock for his friend Bassanio, who seeks to court Portia. Shylock, a Jewish money lender, recalls past insults from Antonio and instead of asking interest on the loan, asks instead in what he calls a merry sport that if the loan is not repaid, Antonio will owe a pound of his own flesh. Bassanio sails to Belmont, where the wealthy heiress Portia is being courted by suitors from around the world. Her father's will requires that the successful suitor solve a riddle involving chests of gold, silver, and lead. Where others have failed, Bassanio succeeds by selecting the right chest, and Portia marries Bassanio, her waiting woman, her servant and confidant. Nerissa marries his friend Gratiano. Shylock's daughter Jessica has eloped with Bassanio's friend Lorenzo, taking her father's money with her. Shylock is devastated. And when Antonio cannot repay the loan, Shylock demands the pound of flesh. When the news reaches Belmont, Bassanio returns to Venice. Portia and Nerissa also travel to Venice disguised as a lawyer and his clerk. Portia uses the law to defeat Shylock and rescue Antonio. So this is the gist of the play Merchant of Venice. So the novel Shylock is My Name is a retelling of the play as well as it's a sequel to it. It's from the perspective of Shylock. We find Shylock of the novel not as a creation of Shakespeare, but as an individual whose motives and interests were overlooked and who is a character in search of an author who will write him fully, who will be able to represent him wholly, fill in the blanks and give him voice where once in the play by Shakespeare he was voiceless. It was not from the perspective of Shylock. He was not adequately represented by Shakespeare. Shylock discloses the English people's confidence in characterizing Jews from their own point of view, in spite of having only a limited knowledge of the Jewish diaspora and a vague awareness of its artistic creativity. And in Jacobson, after over 400 years, he has found an author with considerable skill to portray the character of Shylock. The novel Shylock is My Name consists of two interwoven stories. On one hand, you have a story that loosely follows the plot of Merchant of Venice. And on the other hand, there is this relationship between Simon Strulovich and the character Shylock. Their dialogues and inner monologues on Jewish condition and on Shylock's behavior in the play Merchant of Venice. This Shylock and Simon and their conversations focus not only on their personal troubles and difficulties, especially about their daughters, but also on wider issues of sense of belonging and identity. In the following passage, Shylock discusses his own view of Jewish diaspora and how the English people perceive it. We had a chance at a homeland and we blew it. Belonging was never what we were good at anyway. Being a stranger is what we do. It's the diaspora. No, the whole passage is about the Jewish sense of their identity and their sense of they don't belong to anywhere. They feel that they don't have a homeland. But they feel no embarrassment in proclaiming that the proper Jew is a wandering Jew. citizens of everywhere and nowhere, dandified tramps, subsisting wherever we can squeeze ourselves in at the edges and in the crevices. Instead of creating characters who correspond precisely to the dramatic persona of the Merchant of Venice, Jacobson conflates certain characters and changes the plot here and there. The parallel between the play and the novel is not exact. Most of the characters in the novel are modern day counterparts of their originals. So let's see the characters in the novel and whom they correspond to. The main character is Shylock himself and his dead wife, Leah. We don't meet her, and with whom Shylock is in constant dialogue, and although she is not physically present. Then, his daughter Jessica, who has eloped with a Christian, Lorenzo. Then, the counterparts of the play, Simon Strolovich, who stands for Shylock, the modern day counterpart of Shylock. He is a rich British Jewish philanthropist and an art collector who would be the Shylock of this novel. The relationship between Shylock and Simon is more complex and ambiguous. Rather than just standing for Shylock, Simon coexists with him, has conversations and discussions with Shylock. And then his daughter Beatrice, who stands for Jessica, Shylock's daughter in Merchant of Venice. Then Grattan Hawson, Beatrice's boyfriend, who is a footballer. He's an amalgamation of Lorenzo and Graciano. Then Plurabelle, short for Anna Livia Plurabelle Cleopatra, a thing of beauty is a joy forever Christine, who assumes Portia's role. She owns a Portia car, the brand name of the car, that is homophone for the heroine of Merchant of Venice. Plurabelle stands for Portia. Then D. Anton, an art dealer and importer, is the play's merchant Antonio. He is Simon's antagonist. Unlike his counterpart Antonio, Anton is also a friend and confidant of Plurabelle and fulfills the role not just of Antonio but also of Balthasar, who is a faithful servant to Portia in the play. Then we find Barnaby, who stands for Bassanio. We don't find Nerissa in the novel, and her task as Portia's confidant is performed by Anton and partially by Beatrice. The cast is completed with Kay, who is Simon's wife, who is bedridden and mute because of a stroke, with whom, like Shylock, Simon speaks and has conversations regarding his daughter. There is also a reference to Simon's first wife, who is a Gentile, Ophelia Jane, who appears in his recollections alone. Then Simon's chauffeur, Brendan, is a far-fetched counterpart of Shylock's servant, Lancelot, in the play. The story is told by an omniscient narrator from shifting points of view, mainly Shylock's, Simon's, and Anton's, and occasionally Plurabelle's and Beatrice. The story begins in a northern English cemetery where Shylock is mourning his wife Leah and Simon is visiting his mother's tomb. The omniscient narrator lets the reader know through Simon's recollections how his father disowned him when he married a Gentile woman, a Christian woman, and during his honeymoon with his wife, he revelled in telling Yiddish jokes instead of linking his Jewish heritage. And Shylock is reading from a book to his dead wife Leah and talking to her, although he does not tell her that Jessica, their daughter, has left him. Simon also has troubles with his daughter Beatrice, like Shylock. He thinks that she should have a Jewish husband and remembers how his father reconciled with him when, after divorcing his first wife, he married a Jewish woman. Simon, who has a passion for Shakespeare, immediately recognizes Shylock and invites him to his house. They begin to have a dialogue and continues throughout the novel, dealing with Jewishness, relationships with Christians, about their daughters, and they comment on Shakespeare's creation, Shylock's behavior in the play. Even before they have reached the car that will take to Simon's house, Shylock illustrates the attitude of Christians towards Jews, alluding to a passage from the play Merchant of Venice when he ran out to the streets calling for Jessica. Nobody empathized with him. Incidentally, Shylock expresses his surprise because Simon rides a German car, a Mercedes. Then we are introduced to the world of Plurable, a rich heiress who stands for Portia in the novel. And like Portia's father, this Plurable's father also made a covenant, a test to find the most suitable suitor for his daughter. But she dismisses all her suitors and devises a test of her own, consisting in confronting suitors to choose between a Volkswagen Beetle, a BMW, and a Porsche. The novel's version of lead, silver, and gold caskets. No one passes the test, and then she devotes herself to various pursuits before settling for running a restaurant in her inherited mansion, which becomes an instant success. Plurable, nevertheless, is very sad, and on her mother's suggestion, she attends a group of sadness management classes where she meets Anton, who is her intimate friend and advisor. He becomes her confidant. Here, the novel relates to the very first line of the play, which informs about Antonio's sadness. Anton expands Plurable's circle of acquaintance, and among them she meets Grattenhausen and Barnaby. And this Barnaby falls in love with a Plurable, and to impress her, with the advice of Anton, they go to buy a special present, a painting, Love's First Lesson, a painting by Joseph Solomon. But they arrive very late at the auction, and they discover that the painting has been sold to Simon Strulovich. Then we are introduced to the troubles of Simon and Shylock with their daughters, Beatrice and Jessica. Beatrice is 13-year-old and is rebellious. Her father is obsessed with the idea that she was dating boys who were beneath her, and he used to burst into parties that she attended and dragged her into the Mercedes car and treated her with violence. And maybe because of that, she became rebellious and went against her father's wishes and dated a Christian boyfriend. Shylock, in his first night at Simon's, lies in the bed awake thinking of Jessica, about her conversion to Christianity and her changing Shylock's ring for a monkey. In the morning, he returns to his dialogues with Leah, and that is interrupted by Simon. They speculate on Jewishness and Christianity and comment on Shylock's forced conversion in the play The Merchant of Venice. The scene is interrupted by the next chapter, in which Pluribel asks Anton for help. She wanted help to find a girlfriend for Grattan, and who had a liking for Jewish women. And Anton remembers his student Beatrice, and thus he is introduced to Beatrice and to Pluribel as well. This Pluribel and Beatrice, they become intimate friends, and Grattan falls in love with Beatrice, and both started dating. In the next chapter, we find Simon, and in the house, Beatrice appears fresh from the shower and meets Shylock. Simon feels a kind of mixture of jealousy and embarrassment listening to the dialogue between Shylock and Beatrice, who explains to him that she is a student of performance art, and Shylock is impressed. After she leaves, both men again talk about Jewishness, what it means to be a Jew. Then Simon tells Shylock about Beatrice's boyfriend, Grattan, who is a Christian, and he thinks that he probably never opened a book. The next chapter explains Anton's worries about how he could convince Simon to deliver Solomon's painting to him so that it can be gifted to Pluribel by his friend. Something similar to the plot in the play Virgin of Venice, where Antonio offers or helps his friend Bassanio to court Portia. And his doubts are grounded on the enmity that Simon developed towards Anton, since the latter opposed the former's project to found a museum of Anglo-Jewish art dedicated to the memory of his parents. And after this incident, the plot becomes more complicated, with Grattan courting Beatrice, then Simon's demands of conversion of Grattan, Anton's attempts to obtain the painting, the loss by Barnaby of a ring that was a gift from Pluribel. These are all parallel to the play as well. And all of this intertwined with Shylock's monologues and dialogues on Jewishness, and also about his past behavior, with increasing textual references to the play. The next chapter deals with the first interview between Grattan and Simon, with a brief interruption with a monologue from Shylock, who ponders why Jessica left him and what he could have done to avoid it. And Anton writes a letter to Simon asking him to consider parting with the painting. Simon comments with Shylock after this Grattan's visit, the latter's refusal to be circumcised. So during the meeting, this Simon demanded that Grattan, in order to marry his daughter Beatrice, need to be circumcised. It's a ritual performed by the Jewish community. And Beatrice left the house in anger. Shylock and Simon, they discuss the meaning of circumcision, that ritual, and Shylock criticizes Simon's behavior towards Beatrice. In the next chapter also, we find their conversation on circumcision, beginning with Simon's remembrance of conversations with Kay, that is his wife, about it, and about his reactions to Beatrice's boyfriends. Over a dinner in an expensive restaurant, he seeks counsel from Shylock by asking him about Antonio's bond and whether the pound of flesh was in fact Antonio's private organs. And in between this play, we find Simon asking about various incidents in the play by Shakespeare to Shylock. The next chapter is narrated entirely by Anton's, it's from Anton's point of view and introduces the subplot of the lost ring. Furthermore, it gives insights on Barnaby's and Grattan's characters as well, and also their relationship with Anton. Next chapter alternates with Beatrice and Pluribus. They both prepare to meet Grattan. This Pluribus, she's actually preparing a room for Beatrice to meet Grattan and to fulfill their love. Grattan tells Anton what Simon told him, that is to get circumcised. Until then, there is no more, until he undergoes this ritual of circumcision, Simon will not talk to him. And again, the next chapter, chapter 17, also deals with circumcision. And Shylock asks Simon whether he really wants Grattan to do that, to get circumcised, or he hopes that the footballer Grattan will leave Beatrice. Shylock also asks Simon if he is ready to perform the procedure himself. Simon is unable to answer and counterattacks, asking Shylock if he hoped that Antonio would fail to meet his bond so he could harm him. The conversation goes on around motivations, intentions, real and metaphorical acts with reference to Abraham's disposition to kill his son, the sacrifice that God asked Abraham to perform, sacrifice of his only son Isaac. The point of view of the narration alternates between Simon's and Shylock's. Beatrice then remembers a dialogue with her father in which she asked him why he wanted her to date Jewish boys while they were not observant of Jewish rituals and traditions. So, we get to know more and more about Simon and his sense of Jewishness, his Jewish identity. So they were not observant Jews, but nevertheless he wanted his daughter to date a Jewish boy. In an implicit reference to Grattan's circumcision, Beatrice concludes that her father might love me, but he's a butcher. Beatrice confides her worries to Pluribus, and this is followed by Anton's inner thoughts about how to appease Simon on Grattan's situation and on his yielding of the painting. He refers to Simon as that Jew, and his anti-Semitism is denoted by different passages that we find in the novel, and he has a dislike towards Jews. This characterization of Anton as an anti-Semite is continued in other chapters as well, and is also clear with in his dialogues with Pluribus. Anton and Pluribus, they consider different ways of approaching this Beatrice and Grattan's problems, and they plan to send them abroad. And then the narration shifts back to Simon and Shylock. The latter suggests that Simon could threaten Grattan with suing him for rape, since Beatrice was under 16 when she slept with him for the first time. And Pluribus and Anton, they are troubled with this. Meanwhile, Beatrice and Grattan, they are in Venice. Thus, Pluribus and Anton help them to go to Venice. Now, Pluribus and Anton, they are little worried because of Simon's threat. Simon calls on Anton in response to his letter, and after a few verbal exchanges, he demands that Anton brings back his daughter to him, and otherwise he will be found guilty as an accomplice to rape. Pluribus and Anton discuss this threat by Simon, and they think that it is possible, and they desire to call back Grattan and Beatrice and submits himself to circumcision. Thus Anton offers to get circumcised instead of Grattan. However, Grattan refuses this. Grattan refuses to get circumcised, and Anton plans to do the circumcision for Simon. And later in the chapter, we find Anton, Pluribel, and Barnaby. They meet and discuss the situation, and she asks about the lost ring. Anton and Barnaby had rehearsed their answer if such a situation arises, and they offered Anton to be circumcised as a proxy. They write a letter to Simon to that effect, and Pluribel goes and delivers it, and there she meets Shylock, and she is attracted to Shylock, but Shylock refuses her advances. And in the next chapter, we find Shylock, who takes the letter to Simon, advises him to proceed very carefully. And he has in his mind how his daughter was taken away from him, or how she became further away from him. In his response, Simon reminds him of what he had said in the Merchant of Venice. Didn't you say of Jessica that you would rather any of the stock of Barabbas had been her husband than a Christian? But now Shylock offers a different advice to Simon. Beatrice and Grattan, they both are in Venice, and where she tries not to miss his father, and how well they understood each other in previous stays in Venice. But Grattan is also bored. The last scene of the novel is set in Pluribel's gardens, where a party is going to take place. It is similar to the trial in Merchant of Venice. Pluribel does not want Barnaby to attend the party, and in the party she meets Simon for the first time and feels an immediate dislike towards him. It has been agreed that if Beatrice does not appear by noon, Anton will be taken to a clinic to be circumcised. And once the procedure has been done, he and his friends will be discharged of any obligation towards Simon, and Beatrice will do as she wishes. Anton misses Barnaby, to whom he would have liked to tell similar words to those from Antonio to Bassanio in the play. Pluribel makes a last attempt to convince Simon to forsake his claim, but he refuses. When he and Anton are ready to go, Shylock stops them using a word from Portia, tarry. He asks Anton whether he accepts the terms and considers them just. Anton agrees, and then Shylock addresses Simon with Portia's words in the play, which are answered by Simon with Shylock's words. Shylock, unamused, nods and turns his face back to Simon and says, "Then must the Jew be merciful?" Simon knew exactly what he had to say in return. "You don't always have a choice. On what compulsion must I?" he asked. Whereupon Shylock said what he too had to say: "The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven." So here we find something very different from the play, because in the play Shylock is not merciful. He is not ready to accept any settlements that Portia offers in the guise of the lawyer. And it was Portia who talks about the quality of mercy in the play. But here Shylock tries to change the mind of Simon. The narration stops here to offer Simon thoughts, in which he imagines himself as Ulysses with his ears plugged with wax to avoid hearing Shylock. Nevertheless, he has no alternative to listen to Shylock, paraphrasing Portia's speech on mercy. And he closes the speech with the Yiddish word for mercy, rakamon. Nevertheless, Simon does not retract and goes with Anton to the clinic. Pluribel becomes fascinated by Shylock, but he rejects her advances by telling her about Jewish grievances against Christians, reminding her that Jesus was a Jewish thinker and that charity is a Jewish concept. The exchange closes with these lines. Pluribel looked as though she were about to cry. She put a hand on her chest. "I feel you have laid a curse on me," she said. "Well, now you know the sensation from the other end," Shylock said. And this time Pluribel could have sworn he did spit on her. And in next lines, Shylock has a dialogue with his wife, Leah, who admonishes him about his lack of mercy or rancor to that poor girl, Pluribel. After a few more words, Shylock leaves the party and the story. Pluribel announces news from the clinic, we hear that Anton could not be circumcised because he was already circumcised as a child and therefore he cannot be circumcised again. Simon accepts his defeat and prepares to go home and writes a note to Anton that he will get the painting. It will be delivered to him and wishes him that this will end the sadness on Anton's face. Simon calls on his wife and finds their daughter tending to his sick wife. So that's how the novel ends. I hope you got the story right. You know the story of Merchant of Venice. You have the gist, and something similar to that plot, we have a modern version of the story where we have a Shylock, that is Simon, who is lamenting the loss of his daughter Jessica and how she comes back. And then we have the characters Anton and Pluribel, who stands for Antonio and Portia. You know how the different incidents in the play are recreated in somewhat different way in the novel. This novel, Shylock is My Name. It re-examines the figure of Shakespeare's Shylock through the exploration of his friendship with Simon, who is a wealthy Jewish philanthropist, and their efforts to raise their daughters. Both of them are eventually betrayed by them. These are all that include the major part of the novel. These characters, both of them, elope with two Christians. In the case of Shylock's Jessica, she has already left with Lorenzo when the story starts. And as for Beatrice, Simon's daughter, she decides to elope with Grattan Hossam, a footballer, a Christian. And having been betrayed by their daughters, they have nobody to lean on, and they both exist together, Shylock and Simon. And in the novel, both of them feel helpless by the society at large. But at some points, they imply that Christian people should be more sympathetic to them and at least understand their suffering. And in the first conversation between Shylock and Simon as friends, they confess, "We lack charity," they say. "But when I ran out to the streets calling for Jessica, children jeered at my distress. No charitable Christian parent dragged them home and admonished them for their cruelty." So the novel, it's from the perspective of Shylock, how the Jewish people, Simon in the modern context and Shylock in the olden days, they encountered the Christians who considered them as Christ killers and considered them devoid of mercy, devoid of charity. And along the same lines, his double Simon is often shown as a resentful man that bears grudge against Anton, an art dealer who helped his daughter to elope with the Christian. And as a consequence of her father's overprotective attitude, Beatrice has developed a sense of rebelliousness. We have seen that in the novel, and how she leaves her father but finally reconciles with her. Jacobson's novel it's from the perspective of Shylock. In this novel, Shylock appears not as a merciless money lender, but who is ready to negotiate with the society at large and advises Simon, the modern counterpart, to do that, to forgive his daughter, to accept and to show mercy to Anton. So, this is how the story ends, and how Jacobson succeeds in presenting Shylock in a very different way. We find the fullness of the character of Shylock in Jacobson's representation in the novel Shylock Is My Name. Thank you.